Amid Bay is a little bit more than halfway down. Hahu Bikra Diasmi. It's the second paragraph if you're on the art scroll side. There was a certain shepherd person, not exactly a shepherd, but one of these, a cowboy who worked for the orphans, the Tasvi Toramine, well, not who took one of their oxen, or from him, he was watching the the herd, and one of the creditors of the Yasomim, their orphan's father who had died, took it because he claimed that he was owed money. So he says that I grabbed it while the father was still alive. So there's a difference in din if you grab it while he's alive versus after he died. After he died, he's not allowed to because only real estate is indebted or mortgaged or sometimes for property, and movable properties are not allowed to be taken from the Yorshim from the Yorshim. So he claimed, the guy who took it, the creditor claimed that he took it before the father died. So he was able to keep it. Ubakra Amar La'achar Misa Tafse. But the cowboy, the shepherd, said no, he took it after the father died. Also claimed Rav Nachman. So they went to Rav Nachman and says, "What's halacha?" So Amar Le, Rav Nachman said to the cowboy, "Islach Sade de Tafse. Do you have any other witnesses that this guy, when the guy took it?" Amar Le Lav. He said no. Amar Le, Rav Nachman said, "Mego diachol amemer lakochu biyadi." Because the guy who took it claimed he could have that I had bought it from the father. Therefore, he's also believed to say that he took it when he was still alive. So we learned way back in the second chapter certain laws of Megu. And a Megu is we believe that the claim that you made because you could have made an even better claim. So the fact that you didn't make a better claim shows that you're telling the truth. It doesn't show, but it gives you some added credibility. So because he could have said, "This is my," when I was in high school, I had to read a book called The Oxbow Incident. None of you had to read it then. I remember, except we hated reading it. I think it was in ninth grade. But in that case, the guy had sold a bunch of his cattle to a new guy, but the other people didn't believe it. So in this case, Lahavdil, so in this case, uh Zvulun, no, I can't use it as Yisachar and Zvulun right now. But but uh God took this thing. He said, Usher owed me money. So God said I took the ox in because he never paid me back. So because God could have said I bought it from him, it's true. This was in next week's parsha. We'll say Rashi says that when Eliezer went, uh, the camels, it was recognizable that they were Avram's camels because they were muzzled. No one else cared about their animals eating from other people's property. So here, somehow, Usher's animals, we knew that it was Usher's, whether they branded it or whatever. So God said, "Yeah, it is Usher's animal. That's because I bought it from him." So if he would have said I bought it from him, no one would have. There'd be no claim, no recourse to be taken to it. So when he said I did seize it in because he didn't pay me back, but I did it while he was still alive and I had a right to. So because that's not such a great claim, because well, did you take it before he died or after he died? But because he could have made an even better claim that there was no recourse to say I bought it from him. So Rab Nachman says he has extra credibility from the Megu, and so therefore the he gets to keep it, and the Yasomim, the orphans, don't get this head of cattle or back. So the Gemara asks for Amar Reish Lakish Hagodro saying lahem chazaka. Reish Lakish says that animals that are normally penned in. Rashi says the word a gutter is a fence. So these animals, these domesticated animals that are usually penned in, are called godros because they're normally in pens. So animals but they could move around. There's no chazaka. Just because it's in this guy's property, it doesn't mean it's actually his. So, um, so we don't know who really owns it. So we just because he says it, maybe we shouldn't believe him. So the Gemara says, "Shani Torah dim sira l'roa." An ox is different than these other animals that Reish Lakish is talking about. Maybe like well, I don't know. I don't know if he means a goat or a sheep, because we see here, and I don't know the facts, the Masir Laroa, because they're given over to a shepherd. So therefore, because there's a shepherd watching it, the shepherd could say, "Yeah, this is from the group of animals that I'm watching, or this is not from the group of animals that I'm watching." So the fact that it's in one person's herd or the other person's herd, it does have, right. We're not saying that it got mixed up because the shepherd is watching over and counting. The Beinasiya, a certain person from the Nasi's house who uh who owed money, Tafos Amsa Diasme Misitma. So they took a maidservant, an Amsa, and it was of the Isam because the father died and they didn't pay the loan, and it was in a Simta. So he said a Simta is a certain area in the Rishus Harabim, but it's a place where people go. It's like there's some type of corner in Rishus Harabim, and there's some privacy there. And we saw last week Machlokas Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, that it's not really so much considered a Rishus Harabim. There's certain, sorry. Um, so Yosef, Rabbi Bo, Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. So Rabbi Bo and Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, they must have been the Beis Din. But Yosef, Rabbi Abi Gabayu, and Rabbi Abba was also with them, but I guess Rabbi Abba wasn't one of the Dayanim. So it just happens to be, just to point out, not that it makes a difference in this case, but the Nasi was descendants of Hillel. They were in Eretz Yisrael. So in Eretz Yisrael, they still had smicha to judge other cases. And so you see all these Amoraim's named their Rebbe because they were in Eretz Yisrael. They had smicha. Amar Lahu. So the Dayanim said, Shaper Tafsine. You had a right to take it from there, so it's yours. Amr lahu Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba said, "Mishum debei nasiyin inhu machnefisu lahu." Just because it's from the Nasi's house, you're confiding them, you're flattering them, something that's not the real halacha. Hadun dainik Rabbi Tarfon, but the Dayanim paskin Rabbi Tarfon, and let them take it from and that's what we saw a case like this last week. Va'adrei Reish Lakish uvda minayu, and Reish Lakish reversed the decision. He said, "We passing like Rabbi Kiva, and the Diana made a big mistake. We don't passing like Rabbi Tarfon." I think I should get a drink. I'm sorry. Okay, Yemar bar Chashu havu masik bezuzi baho gavra. Yemar bar Chashu was claiming a certain amount of money against a certain person. Shach v'shavik arba, he died and he had a boat. Amar le l'shluche zil tafsini hale. So this guy Yema Bar Chashu said, "Go grab the boat for me." The Havdil, the dog, the bounty hunter. He's repossessing the boat. Not that he lent him the boat, but he was taking the boat because of the debt that hadn't been paid off. Azel Tafsa. So the shliach went and got the boat. Pogabei Rav Papa Rav Huna Breda Rav Yeshua. So this shliach with the boat met Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breda Rav Yeshua. Amrulay, they said to him, At tofas balchov b'makom shchav la'acherim. You're grabbing this boat on behalf of the creditor in a place where it's detrimental to other people. From Rabbi Yochanan it says, Hatofas balchov b'makom shchav la'acherim. If someone grabs something on behalf of the balchov in a place where it's bad for other people, lo kana, you don't acquire it because we have to have it like equally available to all creditors, and by you taking it for this guy, for Yemar, it's bad for everyone else. So before we go on, the story isn't over, but there's a very important halachic, some important halachic principles here. I just want to mention. Tosfos mentioned that here Yemar actually made this guy a shliach. And Tosos points out that in another case in Bava Metzia, when it talks about this Rashi said it's only true when the person did not make him a shliach. So what's the difference? So there is a general opinion, a general hakira when we say that there's shlichus, someone could appoint someone an agent in his place. Is the agent working on himself, but it's on behalf of the person who sent him, or is he literally acting with the full power as we call it the third hand of the Mishaleach? So if the creditor himself would have seized it, Rabbi Yochanan would have said is that if you grabbed it yourself, well, that's a machlokas here between from what Tosfos is saying. So according to the way Rashi explains it, this halacha was said if someone wasn't a shliach, so you're an independent party. The guy didn't owe you anything, but by you getting involved and taking it on behalf of someone, you're making it good for that guy. You're making it bad for someone else because you're not a party involved. You don't have a right to do that. So therefore, Rashi and Bava Kama says this is one way you could explain the machlokas. Therefore, Rashi and Bava Metzia says if you were appointed a shliach, you're acting on this guy's behalf because this guy has his own interest in this property. You, as the agent of that guy, have a right to take it because it's not considered detrimental. I mean, it's true it's detrimental to someone else, but you're not an independent party here. You're the shliach, you're the agent of a person who is involved in this dispute, and therefore you have a right. That's one way we could explain why Rashi says if you're an agent, it doesn't matter. And Tosfos here, who's quoting, it's saying even though he was a shliach, because the Gemara here explicitly said that he told his shliach, "Go grab it for me." So a simple way to explain it is that this case is saying it's not that the shliach is the third hand of the guy who sent him, because the guy who sent him certainly had a right to get involved. But if shlichus doesn't really make you like literally the third hand of the guy who's sending you, so then even though he's getting involved here, it is being detrimental to the other creditors, so he has no right. That's one way to explain that machlokas. Now, there's another way of saying it, and this is something that comes up. There's a halacha called zachin l'adam shelo b'fanav. You could do something beneficial for someone not in front of him. So, for example, if someone says, "Gee, I wish Shmerel was here. I want to give him $100," and you say, "I'll acquire it on behalf of Shmerel." So the fact that you're acquiring it, Shmerel's getting $100 richer, so that's a good thing, right? So you're able to do something that's beneficial for someone else. If it's not so beneficial, you're not allowed to do it. So, for example, the Gemara says in the second chapter of Kedushin, when the Nesiim, after Yoshua led Bnei Israel into Eretz Yisrael and they fought and they conquered and they split up the land, the Nesiim took lots to figure out which portion went to which shevet, and then within each shevet, which portion went to which family. So the Gemara says though, but there's a possible problem because some of the people who are inheriting might be minors at the time, and because the nasi is acting on behalf of the recipients who are inheriting Eretz Yisrael, if they would want something on a low piece of land and you gave them something on a high piece of land, they wouldn't make you a shliach for that because that's not what they want. So it's not a clear case of zachin la'adam there because that may not be what the way that the lot was falling, the way that the shliach that the nasi was divvying up the land within his shevet. It may not be good for what the kids want, and there's a special halacha for the kids. It's a little different than adult, but it may not always be good. So besides for the halacha of zachin la'adam shlo b'fanav, you're allowed to do something good on someone's behalf in front of that. Some people want to say if you know someone isn't going to sell their chametz, you should sell their chametz for them because it's good for them. But however, that's not there's not it's not it's far from certain that works because that's if you're acquiring something on their behalf, you're allowed to do it, but you're not necessarily allowed to divest them of something. Zachin le'ada means you could something that's meritorious on their behalf, you could do on their behalf. But if it's meritorious that there won't be owning chametz on Pesach, but it's by taking it away from them, you may not have a right to take it away from them. So you could say that a different way to explain this halacha is that when you are when we don't know if it's a shliach or not. Let's forget the point. There's machlokas here if this guy was a shliach, but if this person is seizing a boat on behalf of one creditor, so it's making the estate worse for the other creditors. If this is working midin zachin, we understand that he has a right to do zachin on behalf of the guy who he's helping. But if by him helping, it's taking something away from someone else, then you have the zachin, which he does have a right to use. He has the zachin me'adam that he doesn't have a right to do, and therefore we say that his action doesn't take effect. So this is just a way to understand the halacha even without shlichus. Because you have a right to help someone to do something that's beneficial to someone. But you don't have a right to do beneficial if it's taking something away from someone else. Because this act involves, by you taking it for him, it's being taken away from someone else, the halacha of zachin doesn't work. And I'm not saying that this halacha works through zachin, but it possibly could work through zachin. And we could say that. So now we're on the top, the first line of Pehe Amid Aleph of 85a. So Rab Papa and Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua said, you don't have a right to take the boat. Then what happened? This is where it gets interesting. Tafsu inhu. Then Rav Papa and Rav Huna them took the boat because they also, the guy also owed them money. So this is a pretty a shade. It doesn't smell too good right now because they told him that halachically he didn't have a right to take it. So then they took it. But why is their right better than the other guy's right? So Rav Papa Mimlach Meluche, Rav Papa rowed the boat. Rav Huna Brei Rav Yoshua Mamtach Le Ba'ashle, and Rav Huna Brei Rav Yoshua pulled it with a rope. So it seems that they did this as forms of kinyan. It seems the reason they did it was to make a kinyan on the boat. Maraner, or it seems that they were both trying to take to make a kinyan on the boat. Maramar ana kanina leilakule. So one of them said, I acquired the whole boat, this one by rowing. Umar ana kanina leilakula. I acquired the whole boat by pulling it. So Pagavu Rav Pinchas bar Ami. So Rav Pinchas bar Ami saw them with this situation. Amar lahu, he said to them, Rav Shmuel d'Amri Travayu v'hu shetzbur munachim b'shus harabim. Rav and Shmuel both said that when Rav Tarfon says that you're able to take movables that belong to the orphans, that's if it was just sitting in the Rishus Harabim. You can't go into private domain or not or maybe or even a non-private domain, but it's not a public domain to grab it. So how are you able to take this boat? So Amrulay, they said him ananami mecharufus denaro tafsinan. We took it from the current in the river. So they said that they took it from the Rishus Harabim. That's what it says. Very strange. Also come to Rava, so they went to Rava because Rav Huna Breder Rav Shua wanted to say the boat is mine. Rav Papa wanted to say the boat is mine. Amar lahu, so Rava told both of them, Kake chivre mishalche glima de inshe. You are like white geese who take shirts off of people's back. So this thing about white sheep, Rabbi Kiva Eger points out that there's a Gemara in the end of the last chapter Brachos. If you see a goose in your dream, you should aspire to chachma, to wisdom. And Rashi points out that the fact that they're white, meaning because they had white beards. Well, not the geese, but I guess Rav Hunabre, Rav Yeshua, and Rav Papa. So they were Zakanim, I guess. So they had white, and he was calling them white geese out of respect to their wisdom and respect to their age, I guess. Hachiyam Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said, "V'husha tfasa mechayim." It's only true when that fact that you could take it is only if you took it before the father died. So here you took it after the father died, so it's not yours. So I don't know if he's being cynical by calling them the geese because he's saying what you did didn't work because the guy already died. Avimi berei de Rabbi Abo havomaski bezuzi bechozai. So now there's a different case. Avimi, the son of Rabbi Abo, he had a claim against a certain person from Bechozai, or from the city called Chozai. Shadrinu biad chama berei de Rabbi bar Aboa. He sent money to Rabbi bar Avua to pay it back. Also Perinu, so Chama went and paid it back for him. Amar lahu, and he said, Havali Shtara, give me back the loan document. Because the fact that I'm paying, I want the loan document back as a receipt that I paid, and you're not going to claim the money from Avimi anymore. Which is a good thing to do. So Amar Le, they said to him, Sitra Ninhu. So Rashi is saying, well, Rashi says, he had two loans on us. One of them is with a star, and one of them was an oral loan. And this was the oral loan. So we're not giving you a star back because the star isn't being paid yet. So Azuk made Rabbi. So Chama went to Rabbi and said, look, I paid back this loan on behalf of Avimi. I want the document back, and they're not they're not giving it back to me because they claim that what I paid back was an oral loan, not the loan that was in the stars. So Amarle, Rabbi Baba said, Isu Sadi Deperanitu, do you have witnesses that you paid them? Amarle lo, he said no. So Amarle said to them, Migu Ducham Lomar Lohir Dvar Me'olam, since they could have said that you didn't pay at all, Yecholin Nami Lamemer Sitray Ninhu. They're able to say that the debt that you paid back was for an oral loan, but this loan that they have a star for is still outstanding. So they're not giving that to you because you're going to collect from it later. So we see there's a little bit of a megu over here. Well, he says the word megu. This halacha didn't have to do with collecting from Yisomim. It just was in general about paying back a loan. So the question is the shliach considered negligent in his shlichus, and does he have to pay back Avimi? Avimi said, pay back this loan and I assume that he said, pay back the loan and give me and get the document back as a receipt that I paid it. So did Chama act incorrectly in paying it off this way, and will he have to reimburse Avimi because he didn't do what Avimi wanted him to do, or is what he did is it within the parameters of the shlichus that he was sent to do? Rav Ashi says, Chazina, we have to see what the case was. If the sender said you have to take the star and when you and pay the money, Mishalim. In this case, Chama would have to pay back because he didn't do what he was instructed to do. However, if the case was Havzuzi Shkol Shtara, if he says first give the money and then get the document. So actually it's the order matters. If he said get the document back and then pay the money, he shouldn't have paid before he got the document back. From the fact that he paid without getting the document back first, he didn't do what he was told. Therefore, he was negligent in his shlichus. He has to pay back Avimi. But if Avimi would have told him, pay the money and then get the document back, lo mishalem, he doesn't have to pay Avimi back because he gave the money back in accordance with his instructions. And the fact that they didn't give him back the star, it's not his fault that they didn't give back the star. That's how Rav Ashi answers. So the Gemara says, though, velohi, but we don't paskin like what Rav Ashi says, benkach or benkach mishalem. Both cases, whether the Mishaleach, in this case, Avimi, said, get the document back and then pay him, or pay them and then get the document back, Mishalim. Chama does have to pay him back in this case to Amar Le, because Avimi could have said, L'taken shedarticha v'lo lavuse. I sent you to fix my situation and not to make it crooked. Not this case doesn't make it literally crooked, but I wanted my debt to be taken care of, and now my debt isn't taken care of because they say that there still is another debt outstanding. So the Gemara does not pattern like Rav Ashi's answer. Hahi itza dehavu mifkide gaba maloga deshtare. There was a certain woman who had a whole container of shtaros that someone was mafkid by her. So a pikadon is, before they had safe deposit boxes, sometimes you needed a safe place to keep something. So you would go bring something to someone else's house and say, please watch this for me. So then there's different levels. Is he a shomer? In most cases, if it's for free, he's a shomer china. So he has a certain level of what he has to watch, but there's a limit. If he's paying him to watch it, then he's a shomer sachar, because shomer sachar means you're watching it for money. He has a higher level of watching that he has to do. But in these cases, the objects remain the object of the owner, not the person in whose house they are, because he's acting as the safe deposit box. Now, I guess those safe deposit box, you have to pay for the safe deposit box. That would be shomer sachar, but so asu yarshim katavale mine. So the person who had deposited this in her house, he died, and so her yorshim wanted it back. They said, this was our father's, and so we want these back because now we can, because what do they want to do with them? They want to go and collect all these loans back. So Amr lahu mechaim tfasinalu. So she said that I grabbed them while he was alive because he owed me money. So basically they were claiming that they were their father's and he deposited with her. And she said, no, they weren't deposited with me. I grabbed them because he owed me and I just wanted to grab something. So there is a halacha of osios niknas b'masira, that sometimes if you give over a shtar to someone else, you're giving them the right to collect the shtar. It's not such a simple sugya, but there is a concept. But Rashi here is saying that that's not the case that was happening here. So she grabbed it just to have, but she's not claiming that she's the owner now of Lahavdil. She's not the Fannie. She's not Fannie Mae. She's not. So that's a little bit different because the government sells the loans over, but then Fannie Mae is the one who gets to collect the loan. So she's saying, I'm not Fannie Mae. I'm not the owner of these actual loans. I just own the paper that they're written on, but they're not. I agree. They're Yenim's loans that he lent out, but I just have them. So the question is, do we believe the Yisomim that they were deposited with her and then get them back? Or do we believe her that she grabbed it while they were alive? So they belong to her. So also made Rav Nachman. They went to Rav Nachman. She went to Rav Nachman. Amar La, he said to her, Islach sadi detvuk minach mechayim v'lo yahavas nihale. Do you have any witnesses that he asked it back from you and you refused to give it back? Amar Le Lo. She said, no, I don't have any witnesses. Im kain have a tfisa shel achar misa. So Rav Nachman says, in this case, it's considered as if you grabbed him after he died with tfisa achar misa lav klumhu. And when you grab something from the and it would be owned by the estate, which has yisomim minors, you're not allowed to grab it. It's not yours. You have to give it back. So there's something else here. Okay, so from Rashi, it seems that she's not denying that it was originally deposited by her. But the thing is that sometimes the Mr. Safe Deposit Box, or Miss, in this case, Mrs. Safe Deposit Box, can break their bond and use the thing that's deposited by them for themselves, even though they don't have a right to it. That's called shlichus yad, that they sent their hand and they're using it. So the question is, in this case, she's saying it was originally deposited by me, but I took it for myself at some point. So the question is, at what point do we say, is she saying she took it to herself? Even if she says she took it for herself while he was alive, Rav Nachman's not believing her. So in this case, it's a little different because when she received it, she had permission to receive it because she was only acting as a custodian, as a shomeris. And when she wants to claim, yes, I was originally a shomeris, but then I seized them because of this debt, she had no witnesses that she seized it while he was still alive. So Rav Nachman Paskin, it's that she seized it as if she was after death, and you can't do that from Yisomim. Now, this next halacha, a few months ago, there's a halacha, I don't remember. I was looking up from Ramosha Feinstein, a certain tshuva from Ramosha Feinstein, and this was the Gemara he was talking about. Right now, I don't remember what the case was. There's a certain woman who had to give an oath in the Beis Din of Rava. The Art Scroll note says this is a case where she had to make an oath on a D'Oraisa level, not on a D'Rabbanan level. Amrle Bas Rav Chisda, Rav Chisda's daughter, said to Rava, she was Mrs. Rava. Rava's wife was Rav Chisda's daughter. Yadana Beit Chashuda Shvua. So she told her husband, I know that this lady, you can't believe her. She's willing to swear falsely. So Achbi Rava Lishvua Ashen Kenegda. So Rava then switched the Shvua and made it on the person who was the counterclaim. The other person, meaning originally this lady was going to have to take a shvua and be exempt from paying, and now the other person had to take a shvua that was owed to them, and then they would be able to receive the money. Zimnin Havayasu Kamei Rav Papa Ravada Bar Masna. Another time, Rav Papa and Ravada Bar Masna were in front of Rava. Aitu Hayu Shtar Gabe. A certain star, someone brought the star, said, I want to collect this, Shimon owes me money, I want to collect from this star. Amarle Rav Papa, Yadana Be Dishtar Priyahu. Rav Papa said to Rava, who was the Dayan, I know that this star was paid off already. Amarle, Rava said to Rav Papa, Ika Inish Achrina Bahade Damar, is there another person together with you who can testify? Because you're 1/8. We need 2/8. If you have someone else who can testify with you that it was paid off, then I will rip up the star and say that it was already paid off. We don't believe. Amarle lo, but he said, no, there's no one else. So Amarle, Rava said, Afagav the Ikamar, even though you are telling me this, Eidachad lav klumhu. One witness is not enough for anything. So Amarle Rav Ada Bar Masna v'lo yoiv Rav Papa kavavas Rav Chisda. Rav Ada Bar Masna says, Rav Papa isn't at least as good as your wife, meaning your wife isn't a witness, but because you believed her so much, you didn't let this person certain lady swear. Instead, you had the other person swear that it wasn't them, and that wasn't paid to them, and they could take it. Why don't you believe Rav Papa in this case and rip up the star? Isn't he believable? So Rava said, Bas Rav Chisda Kimli Begava. So I'm sure Kimli Begava is like, I'm certainly sure about her that anything she said, I know I could believe. My wife is very trustworthy. I can believe her 1,000%. Marlo Kimle Begave. But I don't know him as well. So I mean, I have no reason to doubt him, but I don't know him so closely to know that I could believe everything he said. So Amar of Papa Rav Papa said after saying his saying that this debt, he knew that this loan had already been repaid. So Amar Rav Papa hashta the Amar Mar Kimle Begavai Milsahi. Now that Rava said that Kimle Begavai, if I'm certain about someone has legal status, it's a milsa, it's a real thing. Kagon Abba Mar Bri the Kimli Begavai. If I hear something from Abba Mar, my son, Karana Shtar Apume, I would tear up the star based on his mouth. Karana Sagadaitach? Did her papa really say that he would tear up the star? Ela Marana Shtar Apume. He said, no, I would downgrade it based on what he says. So I don't remember what the tshuva of Ramosha, the case of Ramosha Feinstein was about, but certain cases, someone would have, because you know the person so well, you believe anything that you believe it 1,000% when it comes from them. Now it wouldn't work against witnesses, but in the absence of other witnesses, there's extra credibility. There was a certain woman who had to give a shvua in the Beis Din of Rabbi Barabaye. So the other person of the litigant said, so let her come and make her oath in our town where we live, because we came here for the Beis Din. Let us just do it in our city. After the miskaspe umode, because maybe she'll be embarrassed to swear falsely in front of people she knows, and she'll admit that she made it up, or admit that she owes the whole debt. Amrluhu, she said to them, Kisuli zachvasa. So she said, write me a letter that I'm innocent because I'm here willing to do this. So when I swear in the other town, they'll give me the money. Amrlu Rabebo Barabaye Kisvula. So Rabbi Bebo said, let it write for her. So they weren't literally writing. Rashi doesn't say anything on here. So Amra Papi Mishum da Asi Mimulai Amrita Milsa Mulyasa, because so there's some type of mushal here. Rashi makes it sound like you have a certain blemish, so because you have a certain blemish, you're saying blemish things. The way the article translates is him, because you come from people who have a short lifespan. He's trying to say this according with Rashi's first opinion. Rashi's first opinion is that you come from Eli, who was the mentor of Shmuel Hanavi, and Eli's descendants died at a young age. So you're descend from Eli, who died at a young age. So you're saying defective statements, meaning you can't write this shtar for this lady right now. Amar Rava says, "Hi Asharna Dedaini," a certain certificate of the judges in Mikasve Mikame Denachus Yadahu that was written before the witnesses testified that it was true or not. Psula, meaning this is a case where this goes back to what we learned in the second parak. So back in the second parak, we learned that there were cases where there was a star, and they had to do kim shtaros. We needed the witnesses themselves to come and say, yes, we signed on that document, that's our handwriting, or other people who recognize their handwriting to say, yes, this is definitely Chaim Dov ben Pinchas and Yitzchak ben Avraham signatures. We recognize the signatures. So then they'd write another shtar saying that we evaluated that this was a true star. So you're not allowed to write this before you can't pre-write it. You only once you hear the witnesses say, yeah, we recognize those signatures, then you're able to write it. You can't write it first. So how could you have this lady ask for this thing to be written? How could you rewrite it before she actually made the shvuah? Alma mechzik shikra. So we see that when the document looks like it's not true, even though it's not false yet, but because it looks untrue, it's puzzle. Hachanami mechzik shikra. So it looks untrue to write this thing that the lady doesn't have to pay anything because she didn't actually make the shvuah yet. Valesa, but this reason is not true. Mid Rav Nachman, because we have a teaching of Rav Nachman, the Amar Rav Nachman, Omer Hay Rav Meir. Rav Nachman says, Rabbi Meir says, Afilim mitzvah ashpa. If you found a get in the garbage for chasman or son-in-law, and then the husband had it signed and gave it to his wife, kosher, the get is kosher. So we see that it was so a get can't be pre-written. The question is that if all the names were correct in it, could we assume that it had been written, the husband had wrote it himself, or he instructed someone to write it, Lishmo, L'shem Gerushin, on his behalf, on her behalf, for the sake of Gerushin, and never got around to signing it. It got lost, and now they found that it's the same one. Or we worry that it's not the right one. It happens to be someone else with the same name as him and the same name as her, and it wasn't written for them specifically. So Rameir says that it's kosher. We don't think it even though it looks like it may not be okay, it's not a problem. And even though Chachamim who argue with Rabbi Meir and say that you're not allowed to use it as a get, lo pligi alei Meir elabigite nashim. They only argue in Rabbi Meir in the case of a divorce. Because the whole writing has to be done for the sake of the parties and for the sake of divorce. But for other, if you found a star of a gift or of a sale or of a loan, they agree that they found in the garbage, it is okay because it didn't have to be written lishma. The Amar of Asi, Amar of Yochanan, because Rav Asi said Amar of Yochanan, Shtar Shlav about Pro. So let's say that I lent Zvulun money, and then Zvulun paid me back, and then Zvulun borrowed the same amount of money from me later. So can we reuse the Shtar? So Shtar Shlav about Pro. So a document that we borrowed with it, and it was paid back. Eino Choser V'Lovabo. We're not allowed to reuse it for a new debt. Shekvar Nimchol Shibudo. Because the shibud, the debt that was described by this document doesn't exist anymore because that had been paid back. Taima dinim chol shibudo. The reason is because the shibud, the inherent obligation that was inherent in the deck in this document is no longer extant. They didn't say the reason is because it looks untrue. So we see that it's not a problem if the document looks untrue. So I'm sorry I have to leave it a little bit early today. So we got over just to the top of Pehei Amid Beis. And God willing, we'll continue next